Hi everyone, I'm Dayna. I'm from Love Oz YA and I'm here today with Alice Boyle and we're talking about her book, Dancing Barefoot, which came out a couple of months ago now, didn't it, Alice?
Yeah. What are we? I guess it's about 2.5 months
Two
now.
and a half months.
It's August, I believe. Yeah, very end of August.
Wow.
It's been in the world for a little while now, which is nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And I first of all wanted to say thank you because this is a fantastic book. I really loved reading it. I had many hours of enjoyment reading it. So thank you very much for writing it.
Thank you very much for your kind words. That's really nice to hear.
Now, for those people who haven't read the book, can you give us the elevator pitch? What's it about?
Elevator pitch. I'm working on getting
I always start with the elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch. It's about a girl called Patch who is a scholarship kid at a very fancy hoity-toity private school. And Patch is very much a fish out of water at her school. She sort of wears the wrong clothes, she listens to the wrong music, she is kind of from the wrong side of town, and she just sticks out like a sore thumb. And she has one friend, only one, called Edwin, and he's sort of a bit of a lifesaver for her. She also has a very enduring crush, unrequited crush on the golden child of year 11, Evie Van Alta, and is like fully in love with her, but Evie has no idea that she exists. And it's kind of made a bit more complicated by the fact that Patch's nemesis, Abigail, happens to be Evie's best friend. Then Patch and Evie become friends and all sorts of drama ensues. So that's sort of the crux of it. That is the heart of the book. It's a queer YA rom-com.
Rom-com.
Yeah. Rom-com.
Rom-com. Love a good rom-com. Now, so it has been out for, as you say, 2.5 months. How has life changed since having a published book?
It's changed a lot and also not at all. It's kind of it's been really exciting to be doing, podcasts and writers festivals and events and things like that. It's been really exciting. And then also receiving messages from readers has been really, really nice. I've actually been really surprised by the range of readers who have been reaching out. I kind of thought it would be mostly YA readers, but I've had all ages. I've actually had people who are a bit older getting in touch saying, I wish I'd had something like this when I was a teenager. So that's been really touching. The messages from teenagers are also really exciting. That's really, really nice when teenagers say, I want to be a writer and I loved your story. But then on the other hand, I'm also still going to work every day, going to uni, still marking English essays every night. So it's all, life's also still very deeply normal. So it's, good to keep me grounded. Yeah, you published a book, but also, you have to sit in detention this afternoon because somebody, whacked somebody else with a rotten tomato, So it is still, life's still pretty normal.
For your writing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, material for the next one.
And speaking of which, are you writing a next one? Are you planning a next one?
That's a big question. I've actually started 2 more. I'm quite an indecisive person. But at the moment, I've just been so busy with launching Dancing Barefoot and with promoting it and working. And I had the brilliant idea of working full-time, doing a master's full-time and launching a book in the same year. So it's been a bit hectic, but it's certainly the plan is to finish one or both of these other novels and hopefully get them out in the world as well. Just kind of give a day. We'll see how we go.
That's good to know because I certainly loved the voice in this book, and I'm glad to hear there's more coming. So tell us a bit more about the process of writing this book and sort of what sparked where the idea come from.
Well, I was a queer teen growing up in the early 2000s, and there was just nothing available for us. I think that if your story is not, if you're not used to your story being depicted on the main stage, be that TV, film, books, you get really used to putting yourself in other people's shoes and empathizing with other characters, but it can get a bit tiring to never see your own experience depicted. So I sort of, just found that a bit tiring as a teenager. And then when I was at uni studying creative writing, I ended up in a kids and YA writing class. And I thought, I'll do a bit of research, see if things have changed in the last few years and see if there's any queer YA out there. I found 2 books that featured queer female protagonists. And both of them were so depressing, I wanted to tear my hair out. I just thought, how is this all that we've got still in 2012? And so I thought, I'll write one. And so I started writing one, and actually that first chapter that I submitted for my creative writing assignment became the first chapter of Dancing Barefoot. So yeah, it really started as a, being sick of not seeing myself and other queer teens and other queer young people like me reflected on the page, and thinking, well, I'll just do something about it. And since then, we've actually had a massive increase in representation, which is fantastic to see, because I started writing this 10 years ago. But there's still we've got a lot of catching up to do, and it's it's wonderful to see that Dancing Barefoot is not the only queer YA title on the shelves where people don't end up in complete misery because they're queer. It's really quite an honor to be joining a pretty established cohort of writers now, but I think that we can still do with more. We can do with better diversity always.
Absolutely. And you can't have enough rom-coms in the world, can you really?
I mean, come on. We can't just have one.
No. But it is great, and I agree with you. I think that's been really exciting in the last few years, and even with recent Heartstopper on Netflix and Heartbreak High and things like that, you're just like, yeah.
And it has been really nice to see a lot of Australian queer YA making its way out there. We've got, Erin Goff, we've got Jess Walton, we've got Gary Lonesborough, we've got Tobias Madden. I'm sure I'm
Rhiannon Wild, yeah.
I'm so sorry to everybody who's mentioned just now, and that's so exciting that there are enough names that I'm missing some, because 10 years is a really short time, but things have changed so quickly in that time that it's amazing. It's so exciting that the kids that I teach, they say, well, I want to read something queer. I'm like, great. I mean, can we give more detail? Do you want queer horror? Do you want queer romance? Do you want queer adventure? What kind of books do you want? Because when I was a teenager, it's like, you want something queer? Well, here are the 2 books you can have, and both of them die at the end. Like it was. Things have just changed so much, night and day, and I just love that.
Yes. Fantastic. Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you about a couple of different themes that came out through the book, which I really loved. I mean, the first one was the music side of things, with Patch hating her name, which is Patti Smith, and the title is named after a Patti Smith song. So I wondered if you could tell us more about the role the music played in writing the book or inspiring you.
Yeah, of course. Well, it actually started off as a bit of a joke of just one more thing to be these feeling like you've got these massive shoes to fill, being named after Patti Smith, and just thinking, oh my gosh, Patti Smith, somebody who's just so cool, everybody loves her, she's got her life together, she's like the mother of punk, and here I am, can't even figure out what to do with my hair, and I've got a big pimple on my chin. So it really did just start out kind of as this would be funny, and it really evolved into an exploration of like queer and female and non-binary musicians, Not all of the musicians mentioned in the book are queer or female or non-binary, but I wanted to put those musicians sort of center stage. And as a teenager, for me, music was so important. I mean, it's still very important, but when you're a teenager, everything is so intense, and you just like, you're the first person to ever feel heartbreak, the first person to ever fall in love, the first person to ever feel betrayed. And, you know, you feel like finding a song or a musician who is reflecting that back at you can make you feel incredibly validated and seen. So, you know, I really wanted to make music a very strong thread throughout the book. And I was a bit worried that it was maybe a little too referential to lots of music, but the team at Text loved it, and they said, yeah, let's run with this. Can you make a playlist that we can share publicly? I was like, actually, well, I already have one that I've listened to for inspiration for the book. So it's available, everybody.
That's good to know, because I did actually start Googling, like, and reading up, just Wikipedia about Patti Smith and Robert Mapplethorpe and Mapplethorpe. Yeah, and oh wow, this is really cool. And listening to music, this is cool. So there you go. You can help people to discover different music, and you've got a playlist. That's fantastic. So is that on the Text website or your Instagram, or where can people find that?
That's a great question. I should find out if it's on the Text website. I know that it has been shared. I'm pretty sure it's available in the teaching notes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's available in the teaching notes. But I think I've also got it shared in my link tree on my socials. I should double check that, shouldn't I? I'm pretty sure it's there. Technology. Technology is not great.
The other bit I wanted to ask about was friendship, because I really loved, Patch sits in this group, and it's so much about her friendships at school, and the mean bully and these sorts of things. So, and the dialogue's just fantastic. I really love all the relationships that are sort of all around her. How did you sort of work on getting the different voices of all the different characters so that they sound so different? And
that's a great question. How did I do that?
You surprised yourself?
I guess by listening really to other people. I'm a language teacher. I teach English as an additional language, and French. And so I suppose when you're a language teacher, you're paying very close attention to the language that other people use. People actually have very I guess quite distinctive verbal, I don't want to call them tics, but vocabulary that we lean on, and everybody has different things, and my kids point them out to me all the time when I do it. But they, I say, hey gang, and they go, well, Miss, why do you always call us gang? And I was like, yeah, gosh, I do call you gang every day, don't I? I want to avoid guys, because it's very gendered. So it's sort of listening into people's the way people speak, the way different people speak. And I've always sort of been, I don't know where I heard it, probably my partner, who's also a writer and is very smart, that if you close your eyes, you should be able to know who's speaking on the page, which is a big thing to aim for. Don't know whether I've achieved it, but it's certainly something I was, aiming for. But it was very important to me that I was hoping that the teen characters especially sounded like teen characters, that they didn't sound like some 30-something-year-old woman had written them, but that it sounded a bit more, true to life, which includes, swearing and frivolity, and talk about relationships and, the stuff that kids actually talk about when adults aren't around. I think, well, at least I used to. My parents weren't around, I'd be like, swearing like a sailor. So, we cut down on swearing a little bit, but that was sort of the goal there. Hopefully it's been achieved. We'll see, I guess. So
And the other one that I wanted to talk about was Edwin, because Edwin is my favorite character from this book.
Oh, good. I love it too.
I mean, I know you probably meant to like the central character, and I do like Patch, but I really like Edwin and how much Edwin kind of knows his own mind. So I wondered if you could talk more about developing Edwin as a character.
Yeah, of course. So I find that if bi and gay and pan representation in YA is lacking, trans representation is,
Even more so.
even almost non-existent. And I feel like we're almost where we're at the moment with trans rep in literature is kind of where we were at about 10 years ago with gay representation in literature. I really wanted to have I don't know, for me, Edwin, some of the characters just wandered into my brain fully formed. I kind of hate it when authors say that, but this actually was the case, and Edwin was one of those characters. And when he sort of wandered in, I was like, oh, Edwin's trans, actually. And it wasn't like, I'm going to write a trans character and it's going to be, I approached it very, very carefully because I'm cis. And, I have many people in my life who are very, very close and dear to me who are trans, but I did not want to presume that I could just write a trans character and do a good job of it just because, I'm, close and have close relationships with trans people. So I did tread fairly carefully on that front. And, Edwin went through several edits, sensitivity readers. I spoke to the head of oh my goodness, I've forgotten the name of the department, but basically embarrassing. Michelle Telfer, who works at the Royal Children's Hospital, and she is basically incredibly knowledgeable about the medical aspect of transition, and so it was super important to me that these scenes and Edwin as a character was sort of looked at by people who know a lot more about trans identity than I do, and they certainly made the book stronger and I think more accurate and better representation of somebody with trans experience. I also wanted Edwin to be somebody who, as you say, knows his own mind, because Patch a lot of the time doesn't. She's really she feels really out of place at school, and I think sometimes she gets a bit, woe is me, I'm so different and my life is so hard. And she's got Edwin who's like, well, hang on, mate, like I'm the first person to transition openly at our school and I've got my life together. So let's you keep up, you can't always, you also have to take charge of your own life and go for what you want. So he was there as a bit of a counterbalance to Patch's insecurity. He's there to show people that you can be a confident, out queer person, and that's a totally viable, if not desirable, way to be.
Yeah. I like it. He sort of calls her on it when she's
she's a terrible friend from time to time.
Yes, and he just calls her on that. So I'd love to see a book about Edwin because
actually, my kids at school said, are you going to write a sequel from Edwin's perspective? So I would love to. I haven't ruled out revisiting the characters. I feel like that would probably be a job for somebody who actually is trans to write from a trans perspective, because I don't want to insert myself into spaces where we just, as I said, we have so few books about trans main characters that I would feel like I would be taking up space and amplifying my voice when that's not really necessary. That said, do love hanging out with Edwin.
Yeah.
So
I would just love to have seen the camp from his perspective as well, because I'm like, that would be really quite challenging for him. And, you know, Patch is very much in her own head about what's going on for her and everything. And then he has to go off and, you know, hang out with all of those boys in his own, you know, in his tent and whatnot. And hopefully they're as, you know, they're as accepting as you wish they would be, but I doubt it.
Yeah. I think I really didn't want queer phobia to be a big thread in the book.
No,
there is a bit. So, you know, fair warning to anybody who hasn't read it, that there, you know, there is queer phobia in the book, but I didn't want that to be the main event, you know, because it does exist in the world, but you don't, as a queer person, you're very aware of it. You don't need to be reading about it in your, you know, in your downtime and in your, when you're looking for something that's a bit light and funny. So yeah, it was actually a very conscious decision to keep that side of it out of the story as much as possible. Yeah, but Edwin's yeah, he knows who he is, and he's not scared to show it to the world, which I personally love. A lot of people have responded really well to Edwin, which is nice, really nice to see. I was a bit nervous about him going out into the world. I was like, be safe.
And he's like, nah, I got this.
Yeah, fine. Just fictional creation from your head, I'm fine. So yeah, it's a relief, you know. Yeah, it's a relief.
No, I know. I meant more that, like, I think as a person, he would be like, yeah, I know the limits. I know this is going to be fine. Like, you know, don't worry, I've got this.
Totally. He's probably going to run the country one day.
Yes.
You know. He's fine. He's got it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Very level-headed. Well, thank you. This has been fantastic to talk to you more and find out more about the book. I guess my final question would just be, you know, I guess you wrote this book very much to provide an opportunity for queer people to see themselves represented and I guess have an alternate schooling experience perhaps to the ones that they had and things like that. Did you have any other final messages of what you hope queer teens take away from the book?
Oh, I guess the core message of Dancing Barefoot is to just be yourself. I know it's a bit cheesy and a bit, you know, like, oh, be yourself, everyone else is taken, but that even if you feel like you don't quite fit the mold, that's also very beautiful. And it's also okay to take a while to figure yourself out. You know, it is easy for me to say, oh, be yourself, but sometimes you don't know who yourself is just yet when you're a teenager, because it's a time of massive change. You know, your body is changing, your schooling is changing, you know, your relationships with your friends and your family are changing. You're becoming an adult and sort of figuring out where you're, you know, how much you're taking on your responsibilities. Sometimes you're a kid, sometimes you feel like an adult. And it's okay for that to be a time of flux and a bit of turbulence. Because nobody has it all figured out. I mean, as adults, we don't have it all figured out. But as a teenager, even less so. And I guess the core message is it's okay to not have it figured out, because it is a process, but also to, you know, to be yourself as much as you know who you are. Just, you know, it's important to be true to your own beliefs and your own values when you're sort of out in the world, because, you know, those decisions are kind of those decisions are the things that kind of help mold you into who you're becoming in this very exciting, turbulent time. Yeah, I think that's the key message. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alice. This has been such a joy, and I've really enjoyed chatting to you and reading the book. I definitely recommend it to everyone. So thank you. Yes.
I've got a little stack. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a total pleasure.
Pleasure. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.